Hello, hello. Welcome to Tammy's Table. I am so glad that you're here with me today. You're in for a treat. So Tammy's Table seeks to create the same tone and energy and feel that you get when you're at somebody's house party and everybody ends up in the kitchen sharing advice, asking for guidance, getting wisdom, all that great stuff that they don't teach in school, that we learn from our elders and other people. So again, I'm really happy that you joined us today. I am super excited to have our very special guest on for today, Phil Berry. Um, are you out there, Phil?
How are you doing, Tammy? So good to see you.
You too. I'm outstanding. Listen, let me sing some of your praise before we dive into this. Um, so I met Phil originally when I was new, like brand new in the workforce at Colgate-Palmolive.
Yeah.
And I sought him out because he was known throughout the organization. First of all, he led human resources for the US at that point, ultimately for Western Europe, Central Europe, Africa, the Middle East. Um, Phil was told to me because I was new, like he knows all the policies, he knows the programs, he knows the politics, he knows talent management. He is an outstanding leader. So I did seek out Phil throughout my career, even when we were long gone, just because of your knack for increasing efficiency and personal branding. And maybe you should come at it this way instead of that way. So I wanted to, first of all, welcome Phil. By the way, let me just tell everybody, because this is really impressive. Um, Phil was recently featured in Millennium Magazine, and he received an Outstanding Community Development Award from New York State. And finally, he recently, as in last month, earned the Albert Nelson Marquis Lifetime Achievement Award for his work in human resources. So, Phil, congratulations on all of that. And there's so much more, but I'll let the people learn you by themselves.
Thank you so much. It's been a long journey. It's a long journey, and just really glad to share because none of us make this journey on our own. And
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
when I think about how we connected and where you have been over the years, it's good because we've been able to keep that connection, even if not in person, but still I hear about your work, you hear about my work, and that's how we continue to build this framework for success.
Yeah, that's outstanding and sort of is a great setup, I think, for what we're going to talk about today, which is building resilience at work, so that you can make positive moves going forward, good decisions. Um, so, Phil, I think this is a very relevant topic. You would know better than I would, but the labor market, I know unemployment is down, but I also know here, for example, in Jersey, there's lots of layoffs happening in retail. People are, they're taking a look at what's to come, and then they're looking at their talent base. And I had said to you, I want to be the one that is invaluable. I want them to think that they can't, run this company without me. What's the first step in becoming invaluable, which to me is a form of building resilience? And feel free to talk on your
Yeah,
ideas around
no, I,
resilience.
I, and I think first I want to put this, the piece that you talked about in terms of the labor market, I want to put this into a perspective. And that is that, I know that some people may be facing this situation for the first time, but this is not new. I mean, we've been facing these up and downtown type of issues for a long period of time, for decades, quite frankly. And so when you talk about how you begin and continue to position yourself, that's really important. In fact, I remember when I was in grad school at Columbia University. Yeah, and at that time, this was like 73 when I got my first graduate degree. And one of the things that people were saying, well, the job market is really rough. Don't know what we're going to do. People are being laid off. It's the same song, but it doesn't have to be the same song for individuals. And I said that it's not. I don't consider this market a stopper, a showstopper for me. What I want to do is to continue to show how I add value and to show that in any situation that I would be going into, I'm going to be able to make a difference. And that's what I have continued to do, even with upturns, downturns. I've been able to do that, and I do that because I am first starting with understanding what is my personal worth, what is my personal brand, what do I bring to the situation, and to begin to define that in different ways, and also to look at not going the same place that everybody else is going, to look at how I can make a move very differently from some other people. So in
Like
fact,
what? Oh, sorry.
no, please go.
Yeah, no. Give me an example when you say like don't make the same moves that everybody else is making. What does that look like? What does that mean?
I'm going to put it in a framework of two things, in fact. So I'm originally from the New York City area, and I'm living in Fort Lauderdale right now. I lived a number of different places, but my first corporate job was in Cincinnati, Ohio. So everybody was thinking, well, gosh, I'm in New York. How do I make a difference here? I said, I'm going to go to a company that is not in New York and position my organizational development skills. And that's what I did. I positioned myself in that way. And then I went to Cincinnati, Ohio, had never been to Cincinnati, Ohio. Some people in New York, you talk to them and you say, well, where's Cincinnati? They say, was it somewhere on the way over to California? Most people in New York didn't even think about that. They don't even leave outside of their barrels. So the first thing is to open up the spectrum of opportunity that you will seek and say that you're going to go where other people aren't going. I did the same thing when I was at Colgate-Palmolive moving forward. Won't go through all the different positions I've been in, but I was in a position as head of human resources for the U.S. company in organizational effectiveness, diversity, policy management, and the Berlin Wall came down. So this was in 1989. So when the Berlin Wall came down, it opened up an opportunity to do some work in the market. That's Poland, Republic, Russia. And so I raised my hand to not just to go from the US market to Europe directly. I said, I want to go to these markets where I can help to develop subsidiary operations, in all of those areas that I just mentioned throughout Africa, North, South, East, and West, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Nigeria, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, using a number of my skills to help position me in that area and also to position me to work in the Middle East, in Saudi, in Turkey, in Egypt. So I use that as a framework to help to develop my chops in the emerging growing market, because economically, I found that there were markets that market was going to be growing more effectively and more impactful than the established market, which is the US and Europe. And then later on, I went to Europe. So what you have to do is you have to reframe the world and reframe who you are and what your capabilities are and look somewhere else. I mean, those are two specific things.
Yeah, and I think those are great examples. I think part of that journey that you're talking about is that you also have to make a decision to do something differently. Because that all sounds like very easy, what you just said, but it's not. You have to say it. You know what? I moved from New York to Virginia for a job. Like it was a great opportunity. And it wasn't Virginia near DC. I was like on the border of West Virginia. Like it was beyond country.
Right.
That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. Um, but yeah, deciding to do something different means like fully committing to doing something different, which is what you did. So talk to me about your approach. So you decided you see these markets that are opening up, you go to whoever it is you're reporting to. Do you have a business plan? Do you just have your resume? Are you just like talking hypotheticals? Like, how did you make the case and how can people make a case?
You have to have a plan, and you have to have a vision, first of all, that speaks to what the contribution that you can make in these areas in a very different way than people are making it right now. That's the one thing. And so when you start with that vision and then build your own capabilities and your skills and your competencies, and then begin to frame what you are able to bring to a situation and put that into an overall mission statement. And that mission statement, from the standpoint, starting first of all with your vision, and then going down to your own mission statement to say, this is the type of position that I want to be in a few years in order to make a difference in these specific areas. So you have to put some specifics to it. You have to outline some specificity. And then what you need to do is to develop your own, what I call your own personal board of directors. And in fact, one of the things I'll talk a little bit about later, because I began to put all of this together into a book, which I call Being Better Than You Believe, 8 Steps to Ultimate Success. And it talks about, first, it's talking about mission, first about vision, then your mission, then who you are in terms of your brand, and then developing a cadre. So like Tammy talked about how, I mean, I've watched her development over the years. What she has been very good at, for everybody that's there, is being able to make connections with people in different ways. So that way she can get a little bit here, a little bit there from the standpoint of information, from the standpoint of resources, and get people, you enroll them in your brand, in your personal board, and your personal board. That is, these are people who are going to support you. And then what you do is you utilize that as a way to help position you into the areas that you're going to go to. Where should I go? What should I do? Who should I talk to? What should I bring? What is it that I need to understand that I don't understand right now? How can I do this in a different way? What is innovative? What would be a new thought that should be brought into this situation and nobody else is doing? Those are the type of questions that you need to ask yourself and begin and write it down. So that way you have a game plan for moving forward. Just a short piece, but that's definitely one of the ways that you do it. And that's what I did along my way, all along my way. When I took over 20 to 30, I'll stop that many years.
So Phil, let's get specific because this is new. And I'm going to encourage everyone to grab your book. I follow your Facebook page. I want to give you a plug for that. You're always posting amazing tidbits. But let me ask you, who should be on your board? And what if you don't know that many people? What if you don't have like a huge professional network? Who are I don't know, how do you develop it? And who would you put on your board that can guide you properly?
It's one of the things that people don't do enough of is to reach out. And even if you happen to be a person who is an introvert, you need to look at organizations that you can go to that you haven't been to or experienced before. So I happen to belong to a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. And I use individuals from that. That's a great network that I have utilized in order to get to know new people. Your church, your any other type of fraternal organization, volunteering in different ways at the school. If you have kids, then are you just going to that school, or are you volunteering to do something different with the PTA? Those are, and also reaching back through your alumni network. So, for example, undergrad, I went to Queens College. Well, no, I first started out at Manhattan Community College. I started at Manhattan Community College, got my 2-year degree there, and then moved and got my 4-year degree. Then after that, I went to Columbia, picked up a master's there. And then when I was in Cincinnati, I picked up an MBA there at Xavier University. Now, what I did with Queens College, going back to that, I talked with people who I graduated with, and I just stayed in touch with them. And by staying in touch with them, then one of them said, a few years ago, they said, look, when you come back from living over in Paris, I was living in Paris for 3 years. And so he said, as soon as you come back from that, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about being more involved in the at the college level, City University of New York. I got involved in some committees. I was teaching, training, and development. I moved eventually to a part where I became the vice chair of the board of trustees of all of City University. That's all 30 colleges within the system. I also just I was working with a number of people there on a volunteer project with music. And so with music, the I was Louis Armstrong, his archives were at Queens College. So what we had done, so I got involved there volunteering on that,
Mm-hmm.
eventually moved to the board of that. I'm now the head of the investment committee of the Louis Armstrong board. We just built a new building. We took over, if you know Queens, New York, you understand that Queens has more people who are attached to jazz than a number of other people. I mean, not only James Brown there, but a number of Duke Ellington, all of them, they lived in Queens. And so
Mm-hmm.
so that's another network. So sometimes we don't tap into things that are right in front of us to get involved. I mean, those
Yeah.
are two examples. I could think of more, but let me just one other one. I volunteer because of my language proficiency in French and in Spanish. I learned that at community college, so I got involved in volunteering, in a number of Latin organizations, and I got involved with Hispanic Achievers. So, it's just so many ways that one can network, and it's right in front of you if you could just take advantage of it and reach out a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Phil. I think the message at the end of all of that is that you can't make yourself resilient at work and invaluable and make good moves if you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone and go network with, people that you might not otherwise do. So listen, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation with Phil Berry. We'll be right back. Nice, welcome back, Phil. That was such a great jazzy video. I was like, do do
Yeah,
do do. Do.
I tell you that's why I like to incorporate jazz in what I do. Yeah,
Well, you did that successfully.
yeah.
Um, so I wanted to get your opinion. It crossed my mind while we were talking. When you talk about sort of self-evaluation, you didn't directly mention it, but at some point you need to take a step back and figure out what your strengths are, where the gaps are. Um, a leader once said to me, and I want to get your take on this. She said you should play to your strengths, build on your strengths, and fill in the weaknesses with other people. Like her general philosophy was play to your strengths. What do you think about that? What do you
I,
advise people?
I think it is important to play to your strengths, and you have to understand what you're strong. What are the things that make you a strong? Like think about the three things that you do very well that you can position and package in a way that will make it attractive to other people. And you know the way you do this, you don't have to, you could start by just going to friends that you know and then ask them, tell me the three words that come to your mind then you when you think of me. And then they'll say those, and then once you begin to get enough, talk to five people, and then what's the picture that emerges from that standpoint? And so I began to understand that for myself, the three things that emerged was one, that I was caring for others. I would reach out and care for others. That I also was a good communicator, not just from the standpoint of talking, but from the standpoint of listening. In fact, I just had a wedding anniversary, 45 years. And
Woo-wee.
yeah, yeah, bro.
I
And
barely made 12.
oh yeah, well, a person asked me, what is the secret to your success? And I said, I listen well. I listen well. And when I stop listening, I stop and try to listen some more. It's not easy, but the fact is that some of us are very good at I mean, I have a sister, she's very good at talking. She doesn't listen that much.
Spoken like a sibling.
Exactly, exactly. But I think it's so important to frame and working with others. Those are my strengths, and also being able to. I use that as a strength in working in the. I've worked in over 60 countries around the world, and I can name all 60 of those countries. And the reason I can name them, is because when I go to a place, a country, Chile, Zambia, Nigeria, doesn't matter, Russia, I go to learn first. I go to try to understand what is important to people there. And then I say, what would you tell me is important here in order for me to be successful from a business standpoint? And
Mhm.
and I pick up on that, and I utilize that as a way to help position myself. So I think that it's important to do that. And the other thing that I'll say is that there are some weaknesses that I have had, in between, and you have to understand what your weaknesses are. So anytime you're moving from one position to another, and one of the things that I found that I needed to strengthen and work on is that while I can be very strong and forceful from a standpoint of my own points of view, what I needed to do was to step back. I got feedback from people early on in my career that I wasn't listening enough, that I wasn't trying to stop and take time to understand others before I moved forward. And so by
Mhm.
understanding that particular weak point that I had, I was able to build on that in order to move myself forward from one position to another. So understand yourself, understand what you're good at, but also understand what you're not good at and how you can supplement or strengthen that capability by doing something differently. You have to, any position that you're in, you have to think about the fact that there's something different that you need to understand. So there's something different that you have to do in order to move forward. So I think it's understanding both, Tammy, not just where some people will just go just on their strengths. Oh yeah, I'm bad. I really am good at this. I'm bad.
Mhm.
Well, what not as good at do differently. That's what I think to build.
Interesting. So, can we talk about the title of your book for a sec? Because it fascinates me. Um, Being better than you believe. It feels like, are we buying into, a lot of people have imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not that good. I'm putting up this like front. Is that part of the meaning behind your title, or can you explain a bit about the title?
I think that is part of it is that we don't have enough. We don't take enough time to believe in ourselves, to believe that we were put here by the Creator, whatever your frame of reference is, with certain gifts. And sometimes we don't understand what those gifts are. It doesn't mean that they have to be really big and largesse. It could be small things and if you can believe in that and then feel that that little bit that you bring can make a difference in somebody else's life, then that is being better than you believe that you could be in the beginning.
Hmm.
And when I talk about 8 steps, I talk about first understanding your own competencies and your capabilities. What is my distinctive competence is
Hmm.
important. So all of us have competencies, but don't just say, "Oh, I'm a people person." I hate when people say, "I'm a people person." What do you mean by that? Are you good at listening to people? Are you good at talking to people, understanding people? I mean, understand the distinct aspect of your framework and your personality and your competencies that you bring. And then, without going through, talk about building on
Well,
your
so
vision. Sorry.
Bill, I'm gonna lean in on that one. So I would love for you to go through all eight, and let's just like pause after each one. Um, so what you're talking about is being really specific about your strengths, right? And I also, when people say I'm a people person, I'm like, well, I don't know what that means. So, that's a good starting point. I feel like it sort of dovetails into our conversation we were just having about, your strengths, knowing your competencies, knowing your weaknesses. So that's awesome. Are you good? Can you drop number two on us?
Well, I would say that the first thing that you want to think about really is if you're in a situation and it's not giving you everything that you want, think about why you want to change. And what is it that this change will make better than where you are right now? And it could be that you're resting in a job that is not giving you, or even with a company that is not doing everything that you want. So what you want to do is to think about why change, and then begin to think differently from the standpoint of where you're living, what type of skills that you're bringing. For example, I really began to develop my competencies in different languages. And it doesn't mean that you have to be expert in those languages. I mean, yeah, so I went over to Russia and I can say, that's what, yeah, like, hi, how are you? Or something like, just enough to learn, like go to Germany, wo ist die Toilette? And then I went to Paris and learn how to speak French there. But thinking differently and thinking at a different framework, and then beginning to anchor your values in terms of what you feel and what you bring. And then that's when you get to the point of identifying and creating your own vision statement that will, so the vision that I had was that I wanted to be a global expert in human capital development. And by being global, that meant that I had to do some things differently in terms of what my own learning was, the places that I was working, the type of people that I would work with, everything that I would do. And then the next thing was to think about, well, how can I identify what's distinctive about me? For example, when I look at distinctive competencies, there were very few human resource people at that time, and even now, that have what I call a truly global experience, having worked deeply in 60 countries around the world. So that's what I bring differently, when I'm looking at a situation. And then
Right.
that's when you begin to next develop what I call your personal rebranding concept. Whatever your brand is, everybody has a brand. Sometimes you may not know what that brand is. And if you're unclear what their brand is, ask somebody, what are the three words that come to their mind when they think of you? And then what would they like you to do differently in order to be more impactful? Just ask
So
them. I'm sorry.
no, you're good, Phil. Let's just interject. Ask somebody at work. You may be surprised how your brand is showing up at work.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, ask at work, ask the person who is, but not only that, even in your personal life, go down, like when you go down to the candy store or wherever you grocery, like for example, I go to Fresh Market right now. If I went, my wife always says, like I do a lot of the shopping. Yeah, she does the cooking, I do the shopping. That's my distinctive competence, and is I like to go around and do all of the shopping. She'll rest them. I cannot cook, but she can do that, and she does it
Yeah,
very well.
that's a good
So
part. That's 45 years of partnership right there.
exactly. One of the things I've learned, I go to the store at the cash register, and then, or even before the cash register, and then I find the person who is behind the meats or the person behind the fruits and everything. They'll give me a little bit of information on something. They help me with stuff that I mean, my wife says when I go to the store, it's like I'm going to see my friends,
Uh-huh.
because I'm learning something about myself that I didn't
Right.
know before. So that's,
Right.
and then um, developing your own personal board of directors, like 4 or 5 people who can give you advice in different things, because we are a whole composite of different things in terms of, where should I be investing my money? What should I be doing in terms of how I'm dressing my clothes? What should I do differently from that standpoint? What about my hair? What about, I mean, all kind of things. Like for example, I went on a situation where I intentionally lost 30 pounds. So that way I can get my health situation back. So anyway, those are some of the things that I think about. But if you go in the book and you can get the cheap editions, on Kindle or whatever, I already advertised, so I don't have to speak more on it, but it's something. But if you look on Barnes and Noble, and you will see a number of people who have talked about how I have helped them in their business of developing. Last piece on that, I'm working with a client who's a lawyer, Black lawyer, who has now developed himself a very strong business in the Philippines. So I talked to him about go to another part of the world, like in Asia, and see if you can offer something that is not being offered. He has the ambassadors there working with him. He's become on the who's who list of the Philippines. He has joined the Asian Society for Human Capital Development here in the United States, and they picked him as to be their partner, in their business. And he doesn't know any of the Chinese or Japanese languages there, but he's on board.
Yeah, he's
That's
making
how
it work.
you do some things differently. Sorry.
Oh, that's amazing. Listen, I don't know why I don't have your book, but I'm going to grab it. And if you're open, maybe you can come back in a couple months and we can finish talking through, the rest of the steps. I think this is incredibly valuable. This is one that people should replay as they, are assessing where they are in life and what they want out of it. So thank you.
I'm glad. No, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the opportunity, to be able to talk about some of these things. I really did, and really good connecting with you and seeing how you're continuing to carry the flag forward, in terms of your own personal development and success and contribution. Thank you very much. And really
well, you were instrumental.
At the table here with you.
Thanks for coming to the table. We're going to have you back. And I want to thank everybody for grabbing a chair and sitting with us, learning from Phil Berry. And we look forward to seeing you back here next Monday on Tammy's Table. Have a great week.
Bye.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.